After such a long time of no gameplay experiences, I have finally returned to them to stir that pot of controversy once again. So, let's get right into it. The gameplay experience on the BO3 version of Numa. I am quite excited for this, and I hope you guys are just as much. As we did in the past, this video is no different from this formula. As we always do, we start with the criteria that we're going to use to look at a certain map, and because Numa, at least the Black Ops 3 version of it, is a remake of the former World at War or Black Ops 1 version of Numa, we change our criteria accordingly with that. So today's criteria will be based on its adaptation, so going from Black Ops 1 to Black Ops 3, its visuals, its difficulty, its cons, and its final rating. Beginning with its adaptation, it is quite easy to see that the Chronicles maps all kind of rest in a very similar area when it comes to its adaptation. So the new features that we got in Black Ops 3's Numa was simply just your Wonder Fizz, your Gobblegum, your new perks. That's pretty much it. But I will mention one thing about just a small change in this map that I've never really heard talked about. In Black Ops 1, in the corner of the spawn room rests Meal Kick. They have actually changed that with Quick Revive. So, instead of Quick Revive popping up at one of the four corners of the map because the perks are randomly generated, it is instead Meal Kick in place of Quick Revive in the randomly generated perks, and Quick Revive in place of Meal Kick in the spawned area, which I think is honestly a very nice touch. It didn't need to happen, but it did, and honestly, it works a lot better. Moving on to visuals, I have to give Numa, at least the Black Ops 3 version of course, a lot of credit. It took the same color palette of Black Ops 1, but it made it better through its use of contrast, saturation, and everything along the lines of that. The lighting is a lot better in this map, and it allows colors to be a little bit more fleshed out, which in turn makes the map look actually pretty decent given the color palette. You'd think that you talk about like a map that has a little bit of brown, a lot of gray, a lot of green, would not look good, but then you look at Numa, and here it looks pretty nice. It doesn't look perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it looks better. So I have to congratulate the developers for a lot of hard work put into the design, the color palette, the use of lighting, everything like that. It looks pretty good overall. For difficulty, it's still very sound, and it's even similar to what it was back in Black Ops 1, and surprisingly Numa works well with the Black Ops 3 Zombies engine. Zombies are a little bit more aggressive and faster in Black Ops 3, but it still works out because Numa has a layout that encourages training and things like that, which will make you a better Zombies player whether you're playing the Black Ops 1 or World at War version, which is designed the exact same way, or the Black Ops 3 version. The Black Ops 3 version I think is technically a little bit harder if you kind of ignore that Mega Gobblegums can shatter the game into a couple thousand pieces. But yeah, the difficulty is very sound here, nothing bad about it at all. Moving on to cons, there is a few I'd like to talk about, but they're nothing too game-breaking. So starting with the adaptation, this falls under a similar line to Rook, and I think this is a little bit unfair to do, but at the same time, it needs to be said, okay? When you look at Nocturne Totem, you look at a map that had 0 perks in World at War and 1 in Black Ops 1. In Black Ops 3, that 1 turned into a 9. You look at Rook, it had 4 perks in World at War, 5 in Black Ops 1, now it's 9. That jump from 5 to 9 is a lot smaller than that jump from 1 to 9. And Numa is another example of that jump from 5 perks to 9, which means that the game's not going to change as much as Nocturne Totem did in its Chronicles version. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but I can't exactly hold it to the same ground as Nocturne Totem because that would be kind of an unfair comparison. Another thing I have to complain about, and this is a little bit more heavier, the water is literally a death trap waiting to happen. It slows you down so much, which is honestly such an inconvenience and can just be a pain in the ass most times. And the thing is, although it encourages you to play intelligently by finding routes that are best so you don't get downed in the process, it's hard to avoid some of that water. So as a result, the map layout is still kind of struggling-ish in a way. Any other flaw is also in the Black Ops 1 version. As I said, the random perks can be a bit of a detriment. I think it honestly, I'm used to it here, so it's not really a problem nor a benefit. It just kind of exists with a map this small. Random perks is totally okay. What I'm about to say about Numa might piss you off, to be honest, because it's not really fair to do to Chronicles, but I kind of have to. See, a flaw with the original Numa was that it didn't innovate from Verrucht enough, so it suffered because of that. It's the next map. They should have added some new things into the map, of which the original Numa just didn't have it. And the thing is, the same thing applies here. Numa and Verrucht feel like two maps released at once because between the both of them, there's nothing really different about the maps, at least in terms of availability and whatnot. So I think this map will suffer because of it, but the thing is, because this is a remake of Numa, this can't really be avoided. If you're trying to stay true to the map, you can't really patch up that mistake at all. So after all that complaining, where does Numa fall? Last time for Black Ops 1, I gave Numa a passing grade of a 5.5 out of 10, which is honestly pretty terrible, because if I recall, Nocturne Taunt was sitting with a 7 and Verrucht an 8, and this barely passed. But the Black Ops 3 version fixed up a lot of issues, I would say. Visually, the map is actually appealing to look at, which in turn makes me want to play it just a little bit more, and with the Black Ops 3 engine, it is still enjoyable, it is still a casual map. The one thing I do have a problem with, at least with Black Ops 3 Zombies in general, is that the actual original Black Ops 3 maps, the maps that originate in Black Ops 3, they're complex, and as a result, they're not very player-friendly. So when I have a casual time, I can still flock to Numa and have a good time. And now, because of the changes in Black Ops 3, I want to flock to it. So it does still persist with a couple problems of the past that can't really be avoided anymore, but it is still a decent map. So my final rating for Black Ops 3's version of Numa, going from a 5.5, can now comfortably sit at a 7 out of 10. A good map overall with just a decent bit of flaws.